right, Patriots. Let me start by saying that I am a layman in this matter of Dr. Hlophe. I'm not a jurist, not even close to being one. The information I've gathered comes mainly from clips I've seen on social media about his case. Now, let me get this straight. This Constitution allows an impeached judge to become a member of Parliament, who then has the power to draft laws that judges will eventually have to use in their judgments. And yet, the same Constitution doesn't explicitly state that an impeached judge, if he is a member of Parliament, cannot also be a member of the Judicial Service Commission, JSC. I mean, come on, Patriots, I'm not a legal expert, but even I can see a piece of nonsense when it's staring me in the face. How could the foreigners who were involved in drafting this South African Constitution leave so many loopholes and contradictions? It's almost like we don't have a real constitution. How many of these contradictions and loopholes must we go through before we understand that we need a constitution that is truly South African? Patriots, as I've said before, I'm just a layman, but this is pure nonsense. The JSC has specific responsibilities. They handle judicial appointments, interview candidates for positions like judges of the High Court, Supreme Court of Appeal, and Constitutional Court. Their job is to assess qualifications, experience, and whether a candidate is suitable for the judiciary. Yet, somehow, the person drafting this Constitution didn't think to mention that an impeached judge could end up being both a lawmaker and potentially a member of the JSC. Patriots, let me know if I'm losing my mind here, but I'm tired of seeing this flawed system. The JSC also deals with complaints about judges' conduct and performance, even conducting investigations and disciplinary hearings. But somehow, we're in a situation where an impeached judge can still be in Parliament making laws that other judges will use in their rulings. Even if he's not on the JSC, Dr. Hlophe is still a lawmaker, and those laws he helps create will be applied by judges. How does this make sense? This whole scenario seems like it was designed to protect the interests of foreign entities rather than the people of South Africa. We're stuck with a constitution that was written by outsiders for outsiders and not for South Africans. In my mind, if the Constitution allows anyone to be a member of Parliament, then it should also allow them to do whatever members of Parliament do. But if they can't be part of the JSC, then logically they shouldn't even be in Parliament in the first place. I don't have all the information about Hlophe's case, but the logic should be clear. If you can't serve on the JSC, then you shouldn't be making laws. I'm not siding with any politician on this. My point is that we need a South African constitution that works for South Africans. Look at what's happening now. The Western Cape High Court barred Hlophe, and it seems like they're just guessing because there's no law that explicitly says he should be barred. But what we do know is that the law allows him to be a member of Parliament and even potentially serve on the JSC. Just a few months ago, politicians were busy arguing about Orania, and it was clear that these people don't know anything about the Constitution. According to this very Constitution, Orania's Afrikaner self-determination is perfectly in line with the law. The law doesn't say they can ban people based on appearance, but it does say they can separate themselves and regulate themselves as they see fit, as long as their local rules align with national legislation. So, in other words, the people of Orania didn't break any laws by separating themselves. People in Cape Town could do the same thing if they all agreed to it, as long as their local laws were in line with South African law. This Constitution even allows for self-determination, which strengthens the arguments of those who advocate for the right to associate or disassociate with others. Imagine this. Zulu people could theoretically say that their province is for Zulus and they want to practice their culture, create their own laws, and even rename towns. They could do all this as long as their laws were aligned with South African laws. But what the Cape Independence Movement wants is something entirely different. They want a separate country, which isn't in line with the South African Constitution. They're foreigners in South Africa, with ties to British politicians, I'm told. And this is exactly the kind of flawed constitution we have in South Africa. Tomorrow, Burna Boy could show up and claim he wants to own Johannesburg, and the Constitution would protect him, especially because he's a foreigner. That's how bad it's gotten. And these judges doing guesswork, It's becoming a serious problem. They're acting like politicians. I'm no fan of Zuma, but when he tried to capture everyone, his biggest mistake was failing to capture the judiciary. Now, we can all see that foreign businesses, together with South African banks, have never stopped manipulating the rand. That manipulation only stopped when the DA was included in the government. NGOs have stopped taking the Department of Home Affairs and the Department of Education to court, probably because those portfolios are now under DA control. In closing, patriots, it's crystal clear that those who drafted our Constitution were not working for us. That's why, on the first page, it says, South Africa belongs to all who live in it. But on important matters like this case with Hlophe, there are contradictions and loopholes. The courts are doing guesswork, and it's time we face the reality. We need a South African Constitution written by South Africans for South Africans. All right, patriots, let me digress a bit here. We were told that billions of rands in foreign currency were stolen from the president's house. And apparently, the president knew about it, but kept quiet. Now, isn't that a crime in itself? When a leader knows about a crime and doesn't report it, especially a crime this big, it raises serious questions. We also know that he accepted foreign currency from his customers in a country that has its own currency, and that's illegal. We haven't even been told whether he paid taxes on that money. On top of all this, we hear that the president hired his own people to investigate those who broke into his house and even paid the criminals to run away. Let's not forget that his bank statements are now held by judges. This is the president we're talking about, patriots. And yet, we are constantly reminded how Zuma supposedly captured everything, but somehow he didn't manage to capture the judiciary, NGOs, or the banks. I'm not a Zuma supporter, but these contradictions leave us all scratching our heads. Then there's the whole Zondo Commission issue. Zuma claimed that Zondo was biased due to some personal relationship they had outside of politics. Instead of stepping aside or having another judge investigate this bias, Zondo flat out denied the allegations and continued to handle the case himself. So, in essence, Zondo was the main judge in a matter where he himself was the accused. How does that even happen? Maybe it was a mistake, but it didn't stop there. Zondo then referred the case to the Constitutional Court, where he has close working relationships with the judges. It was clear that the Constitutional Court wouldn't reject Zondo's case because he's part of their inner circle. And Zuma, who was at the center of it all, was sentenced without ever being given a chance to stand before a judge and defend himself, or at least show any emotion in person to convince them otherwise. We need to be careful, patriots. When many white people feel their power is threatened, they quickly label it as state capture. If Zuma really had captured the state as they claim, why would he have helped the Guptas build ANN7? If he had truly captured the state, he would have just used SABC instead of letting crooks like the Guptas undermine us with their dodgy network. There's evidence all over the place showing that the Guptas were crooks. And yes, Zuma allowed them to undermine us, but this idea that he captured everything is exaggerated. He couldn't even control the judiciary or the banks. Tell me what you think about these stories, patriots. Does it all make sense to you, or am I crazy? There's a lot to consider here, and it's hard to know where to even begin when the contradictions and loopholes keep piling up. But one thing is for sure, we need to stay sharp.